Happy Thursday, Locked On Women's Basketball fans. We have WNBA playoff previews to discuss, and we're joined by someone very, very special, now a friend of the pod and a member of the Rising Media Stars. So much Locked On Women's Basketball to discuss, and guess what? It all starts right now.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And I want to start off this episode, how we start off many episodes, by thanking you. Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. So shout out if you're watching this on video, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is also brought to you by FanDuel. So we want to shout out our sponsor, FanDuel, real quick. Now through September 22nd, right around the time WNBA playoffs are set to begin, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, guys, welcome in. So we're going to discuss first the playoff picture. I'm going to discuss Diana Taurasi and Natasha Cloud and their 7 technical fouls this season. Diana now 6. We're also going to discuss the games that are happening tonight. And guys, I just think that tonight is going to be so fun. I'm actually going to be at the Liberty Storm game. So make sure you check out the Next Hoops coverage on social media for all of that. We're going to discuss Angel Reese's recent record. And we're also going to talk more about the Mystics and the Mercury with a particular focus on Diana Taurasi. So more to come after that. But let's just talk about the playoff picture as it stands. So as we know, and maybe you don't know, so maybe I'll just give you a rundown of everything. So October 20th, the next date you should focus on. That's the last day WNBA finals can begin. And we had the Las Vegas Aces versus New York Liberty last year. And I posted on the Instagram, all right, guys, if anybody has a question, swipe up tonight. I want to answer as much as possible. And a lot of people were asking who I think is going to go the furthest in playoffs. And it really has to do with the structure of playoffs, right? So we know that the teams that are in it are New York, Connecticut, Minnesota, Seattle, and Vegas. Tonight, this is Thursday. We may know by now if the Indiana Fever are in. So on Tuesday, if the Fever were to clinch, they will have to have Chicago lose to the Aces on Tuesday and Atlanta lose to Phoenix. So I'm recording this before those games even happen. So if those 2 losses, with Chicago losing to Las Vegas and Atlanta losing to Phoenix, then the Fever are in, basically. So we'll have the Caitlin count continue to rise. The Fever would also have to beat the Mystics, and if it comes down to a tiebreaker, if the Mystics just win every game, Indiana would then beat that tiebreaker because it's a conference record. So for those wondering if Caitlin can make it, Caitlin probably can make it, okay? Now, the first games of the first round are hosted by the higher seed. We see that has an impact. I think it definitely can have an impact with Indiana. And a couple people were asking who's the best position to make noise in playoffs, the Fever or the Mercury. Guys, it's really, really hard to root against a GOAT, especially Diana Taurasi. We also have Brittany Griner, Tosh, if she plays. And let's just talk about Kalia Copper on the Mercury. It's really hard to root against them. I think that the Fever might have a better home court advantage, though. So if the Fever, they wouldn't have the first 2 games at home, but if it comes down to them playing that third game, then they could have an advantage there. So what's that breakdown going to be? Okay, so 1 plays 8. So it's like the Liberty are going to play last in, so it might be Chicago. 2 plays 7, 3 plays 6, 4 plays 5. That's the playoff structure. That's how it works. That's WNBA playoffs for you. So the semifinals and the finals will be a 2-2-1 setup. So the higher seed hosts the first 2, and the final game if it's necessary. Now I want to shout out Angel Reese. So most rebounds in a single season with 405. She beat Sylvia Fowles' record of 404 set in 2018 and pulling up to the game in a Dennis Rodman shirt. As a former rebound producer, I'm not saying I was a scorer. I'm saying I could produce some rebounds. Dennis Rodman was my GOAT. So I think it was just so cool to see her rock that jersey. Super symbolic of her impact off the court and her perfectly weaving in social structure in with her basketball and playmaking ability. Super, super impressive. Shout out to Angel Reese for that. The Bayou Barbie turned League Barbie. Another record that I want to talk about is Diana Taurasi and Natasha Cloud. They both got their 7th teed up in the game against the Aces, with the Mercury losing 97-79 against the Aces. And Natasha Cloud is sitting out against the Dream Tuesday night. So in the future, we're going to look back on that. So this is going to be released on Thursday. By that time, Natasha Cloud would have already sat out a game. Diana Taurasi actually does not need to sit out a game because her tech was rescinded. She said she was talking to her teammates, and maybe it's the Diana Taurasi of it all, but that's the reality. So the rule there is sitting out one game after 7 techs, and then after every 2 technical fouls after that, you sit out yet another game. So Natasha Cloud didn't like the way Kelsey Plum pushed off her. She barked a little something, and then she walked right on over to the bench. So that was that. And we're going to actually get into it all with Miss Symone Stanley herself. So I'm going to bring her on, and then we're going to head to a little break, and then stay tuned because we're going to hear about what Symone thought of this whole situation. And then we're also going to talk about rising media stars and a friend of the show, LaChina Robinson. You really can't miss this. So I want to welcome on Symone. So happy to have you on Locked On Women's Basketball. Hello. All right, Symone's getting settled. We're gonna hear her sound pretty soon, but I think you might just be muted. Let's see.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Oh my God, I can hear you loud and clear. That microphone is very good.
Oh, yeah. So my ring light is broken, but my microphone is still working. So I had to set up in the living room. But we are here and we are excited.
I'm so excited to have you. So you went to NC State. You rep the Wolfpack. I mean, you mostly work in the football space. And so I know right now is very busy for you. So thank you so much for coming on. But I feel like I've met you through the women's basketball space, saw you at the WNBA Draft, saw you at the Final Four. And then friend of the pod too, LaChina. So I want to discuss your whole journey too. And we're gonna talk through everything. But first, I want to just thank you for coming on. I appreciate it. How busy is right now for you with football season?
Of course, it's a lot because it's just back to back. Like, with basketball, it's like a game every night. So that's busy for y'all.
Mm-hmm.
But with football, it's just so much with college on Saturday, NFL now pretty much every day of the week. This week we have Thursday, we have Friday, Sunday, Monday games. So opening week is a lot, but we love it. We love what we do. So
it's such a different time of year. And I mean, yeah, you're right. Basketball is back to back to back, but I feel like you get into the rhythm of it all. But covering football, though, I can imagine it's just so much. There's so many players to know. And that's why I think it's so impressive when people work in it, because these 90-man rosters, like, it's insane.
Yeah. And it's always changing too with the practice squad, injuries, 32 teams.
And so people know you're particularly focused on the Eagles, right? That's your team.
Yes. So definitely heavily biased, 90% truth, 10% bias when it comes to the Eagles. But I make all NFL content, but of course, I make a lot of Eagles specific content.
Okay. So I got to discuss with you off air my fantasy team. And then Coming up in break 2, though, I'm going to pick your brain a little bit more about WNBA playoffs, which I already previewed for the people, and I asked people for some questions, and it's pretty much all WNBA playoff questions, so that's why I knew I wanted to talk about it. And then we're going to talk about technical fouls because I think it's just fun to talk about, and then we'll get into your journey. So more Locked On Women's Basketball with Symone after this. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. We are so happy to be sponsored by FanDuel. And you've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook after all. We have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, mark your calendars, guys. It's going to come by in the blink of an eye. All FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a free 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube. It's YouTube TV. And this is a great time of the season to have this amazing perk. Then with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. So visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook today. We also want to encourage everybody to check out maybe your second listen of the day. So away from the NFL and more into the NBA, which is coming up. So you know that Locked On Women's Basketball is your first listen of the day, but for your second listen, enjoy the Locked On NBA podcast. There's no offseason in the NBA, and Locked On NBA provides daily basketball analysis from national and local experts in 30 minutes or less. No one keeps you as informed and entertained as Locked On NBA. Available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay. Symone, so now we have you on. There's so much I want to pick your brain about, but there's one very unique thing about you I have to ask you about. At the draft, probably the one of the biggest picks was the #1 pick, and that was Caitlin Clark. And you got to talk to her. What did you learn from her? I feel like I had a brief interaction with her off air, so I learned a little bit something too. She's actually really funny is what I learned.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Was there anything that you got from her that you're like, okay, cool. Like, I'm happy I got to see that for myself?
Yeah, she was just so friendly. Like, not like most people aren't friendly, but like she was very like, as a reporter, you never know what you're gonna get from an interviewee. And I was definitely nervous because it's Caitlin Clark, it's the WNBA draft. Like, this is huge. But she was so like warm and welcoming that like it just made it such an easy interview for me because of just how warm and welcoming she was. And we don't hear from her like a lot on social media, so we don't really get a lot of her personality from social media. You get some mic'd up moments from the games, and you get like some in-game sounds, or like we'll get some stuff from team social media. But like you said, definitely funny, witty, like a lot of little jokey jokes. So a great personality. It was a great like intro to the WNBA season.
Ooh, and so you also got to ask her a little bit more about like her journey, like all the hard work it took to get to that point where she's the #1 pick. So for you, as someone like you work in mostly the football space, you know how important it is to have time to prepare. Were you at all thinking like, man, this girl is going from the Final Four to playing in the WNBA? Like, it's kind of good. Maybe she didn't have to play in the Olympics. Like, she got a little break from basketball, and we're seeing that helped her a lot now. So yeah, did your football mind turn on a little bit there where you're like, man, she might need some rest time?
Yeah, and we definitely saw, like, we've seen the way, like, after the Olympic break, probably the physical health and the mental health break, like, the way that she's just turned up so much more after the Olympic break. But that is, like, big. Like, usually, like, rookies, when it comes to the NBA, they have, they're playing in March Madness in March. A few of them are going to go on until April. And then they have all summer, like, to scrimmage. They have like the rest of the spring, the summer, the fall for training camp and scrimmage. And then they don't get going until like October, November.
Right.
But for the women's basketball side, there's no time to like prep for that transition from college basketball to professional basketball, which is a whole different game. So shout out to all the rookies for just being able to get thrown right into the fire. But I definitely think that the Olympic break had a big impact for her, just being able to, and then like you're moving to a whole new city. It's not even just playing a whole new sport, but like you're moving to a whole new city, you're away from your family, you're away from your teammates and friends in such a quick amount of time. So I think like having that step back with the Olympic break probably gave her a good refresh, reset, and we've seen it. We see what it did on the courts.
Right. Yeah, she's leading the league now in assists. I think it's like 8 assists a game. She's second in 3-pointers made behind Arike. They both have about 3. Yeah, Caitlin, I mean, I think that it's just a convo about Caitlin, I feel like is going to be always intertwined with Angel Reese too. And I love that. Like that's more conversation to talk about in a way. But yeah, more opinion focus. Like, would you say that that's something that's been unique to the WNBA where it's like really one player intertwined with another player, or do you feel like that's happened before? We've seen this.
I feel like we've seen it here and there, like especially in the NBA where it's like so specific matchup heavy, or like we've seen in the NFL, you know, like some wide receivers versus some cornerbacks, you know, running backs, you know, defensive ends sometimes with quarterbacks. But I've never seen it drawn out so heavy as it is as it has been in this case. Because usually in the NFL, you know, you have some DBs that might be talking trash or wide receivers that might be talking trash, but it's so common that it's not a headline. It's not a storyline. Mm-hmm. Like, it's just like, oh, those two going at it again. They do it all the time. It's happening all over the field. But I feel like the media just hyper-focused into them two like it was something unique in sports when it's not unique. People have their on-the-court beefs or like, you know, a guy or a growl you get up more for when you're going up against. But I don't know why this specific rivalry, and I say rivalry quote unquote because they have said themselves they don't see it as a rivalry, so that's why I'm saying like rivalry. I don't know why this one is just blowing out into proportion when people are talking trash on the field nonstop or on the court nonstop. Like,
right, I know, and I'm a fan of the trash talking, and so now we got to talk too about technical fouls. So you're limited. People listening, you know, now you're limited to 7 techs a season. And there was like a technical foul watch for Diana Taurasi earlier this year. And somehow her teammate, Natasha Cloud, got to that before her because Diana's was rescinded. So, yeah, if you have any reaction to these technical fouls, let me know. They ended up overturning Diana's just because it was proven that she was talking to her teammates supposedly rather than anything against the opponents or the refs or anything like that. So, yeah, any reaction to the fact that they've drawn up so many techs in one season?
Yeah, like the fact that 2 teammates are on technical foul watch is crazy. Like, you know, you might have that one teammate or one player on the team who, you know, is extra chatty or, you know, extra animated, but to have 2 players on the same team, 2 stars to have to be on technical foul watch, that's a little scary as a fan because we are going down the stretch with the playoffs coming up and all these games matter down the stretch and you want your best players on the floor and you don't want them not on the floor because of something that's so easy to control, which is getting a technical foul. So that's crazy. I never thought that Natasha would pass Diana. That's the wildest part.
I know, and I feel like in the offseason, people are like, okay, wait, Tosh is going to a team with Sophie Cunningham and DT already on it. Kalia might talk a little trash here and there, but like that team in and of itself, I'm like, this is crazy. And people are asking, do you think the Mercury or the Fever, I think, have a better chance later on in the season? I'm like, well, the Mercury need Diana to play, and if she can't play, I don't know, we got to look into the details of the rules, whether you could get a game suspension in playoffs. I'm not sure. I think it still applies, but yeah,
that's a good question.
Super unique to them. I feel like I really haven't seen that anywhere else.
They have like so much personality on that team between Diana, Taj, Sophie, Copper. Like they have a lot of personality on that team.
And yeah, so as someone, I'm so curious. You cover football, and I feel like people who cover football, you know, people's personalities like super well, but they are covered by a mask.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, do you feel like the nature of like women's basketball, it being women, being like grown women that, you know, are just like absolute dogs and so good at what they do you feel like kind of the nature of people's personalities is a little bit, I don't even know how to describe this, but like it's it's more of a thing of conversation in the women's space, would you say, than football, or do you feel like they're kind of comparable?
I do think it's harder, like, for us as fans to get an insight on personalities in football, because most of the time we're only going to get like the star players is the ones that, you know, like the social content team, and in the post-game press conference, the stars are the ones that, you know, we're going to be locked in on, and they do wear a mask, like you said. But I feel like it's a lot of personality on football teams. We just don't always hear it, and we don't always get to see it like we do in basketball, because when the cameras zoom in, you can see what Diana's saying. You can see what Joel Embiid is saying. But, like, you know, in the NFL, it's 22 guys on the floor at one time. Like, we're not going to see what everybody is saying all the time. But I definitely think, like, the trash talk, the personality, I think it's the same across the board when it comes to football and basketball. I just think that it's on display a lot louder in basketball.
All right, now I got to throw it back to your alma mater, NC State. Being in those locker rooms, man, both these teams making the Final Four, and you went in the locker room for the women's team at the Final Four. Did you learn anything about them that you might have not known just being at school with some of the players when you were there?
Well, first of all, I'm old, so I wasn't at school with any of them.
Right, none of them, but, you know, like a little bit more insight. And no, you're not old.
But no, I feel like, okay, all the locker rooms, because we did get to go in every locker room, everybody had the same demeanor. And I think it was because, obviously, not nerves, but, you know, everybody's locked in. Like, it's game time. Like, for us, it's like, we're at the Final Four, we're getting content. Yeah. But for the players, it's like, it's go time. So the locker room vibe was definitely very, I wouldn't say intense, but it was business. Like, there was no, like, you know, music jumping, nobody doing the gritty, no TikTok dances going on with the players. It was very much like mental, like trying to get into a mental space. But it was definitely cool getting to know, like, Sanaya Rivers. I know she is very active on social media, so we see her on TikTok dancing and stuff all the time. But it was cool to, like, you know, meet her in person and get to experience her personality in person. She's definitely very cool. I'm so glad, you know, with the transfer portal, you never know who coming back and who not. So I'm just glad she stayed with us. But yeah, it was definitely fun getting a behind the scenes look at the team.
And so now I got to ask you about your journey too. When did you know that you wanted to be in the journalistic space? And if you want to bring up rising stars in this moment, when you knew you wanted to get involved with them and with LaChina's mission?
So I knew I wanted to be in sports media probably, like, I would say, like, my senior year of college. I majored in sports management because going to college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do sports, but I didn't know if I wanted to do marketing, like admin, operations. I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to work in sports. But around my senior year, because, you know, we watching the games and stuff, I'm always giving my takes. And my friends, everybody, like, you just need to go ahead and make a podcast. I guess they tired of hearing me.
No, never tired.
So I'm like, you know what? I really could, you know, do my own little thing. But this was 2018. So, as you know, like, the digital space wasn't as big as it is now. It was starting to emerge a little bit, but it wasn't like it is now, like it has been since COVID. So I was just like, am I really going to be able to make it in this field? So I was doing my own little, like, social media on the side, but I wasn't taking it super serious. And then once COVID came, you know, you're in COVID, you're locked in the house. So I was really taking my content serious, doing YouTube, posting stuff on Instagram. Now I do a lot on TikTok. I still do YouTube. I do a lot on YouTube and TikTok, but TikTok wasn't popping then.
No, everybody's just dancing.
Everybody was just dancing. There was no, like, takes or stuff on TikTok.
Right.
So yeah, in that time, that's when I was like, I can really do this. And then I think LaChina launched her program. She might have launched it in 2019, honestly. I think it was 2019. And I saw that program and I was like, would I be able to get in that program? Because, as you know, that first class is like some icons.
Drea, like Miss Nike deal herself.
Right.
Drea? Oh.
Dora at the Olympics covering the Bucks. She was on NBC calling all these Caitlin Clark games. Like, she called the the college record breaker. She was the play-by-play voice.
Right. No, Zora killed,
Mhm.
and she killed it in the Olympics too. And
Yup.
was Ice in that class?
Ice was in the first class. Like the first class, iconic. So I'm like, whoo, 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 like this is
Right. And
crazy.
she just covered Angel Reese's like 40. I mean, I'm not Angel Reese, Asia Wilson's like she's going crazy with
yeah,
all her
she was on
games,
the call for that.
she was
Yep.
on the call for that as well. Man, that first class was
That first class is like Mount
Yeah,
Rushmore, Rising
really.
Stars. So obviously knew I wanted to be in that program, applied twice, eventually got in. So I was super stoked when I got in the program, and it's been like amazing. Like before the program, I've had like people, I might send stuff to, they might give me some tips, give me some feedback here and there. But I never had like a serious hands-on like mentor. Like LaChina spends so much time like pouring into us. Like I feel like a mentor is literally an understatement for like the amount of like time and stuff she pours into us. So it's just been so good because I didn't go to school for broadcasting. And when you go and you're on an assignment, like you'll get a little bit of feedback from like a producer, but like a producer really ain't trying to like, they want you to come ready to do the job. They ain't there to be like, you need to work on this. They want you to come already knowing what you're doing. So just the way I've been able to get so much better, like at sideline and just with my reporting and packages, just getting so much specific feedback from LaChina has been amazing. And then also, obviously, all the experiences we got to have, Final Four, draft, we got to do so much stuff. So it's really been a blessing.
And so if you could give any message to LaChina or to any of your colleagues, you would say in the program, what would you want to say to them to close it out?
I would say thank you so much. Like literally getting into the program, I'm just saying like it changed my life. So just thank you so much. It's been a blessing. Like I can't even describe, like LaChina literally has been a godsend for me. So I can't even really like put it into words. But like I said, the time, attention, that she has 20, they just brought in a new class. So it's 5 more girls. So, but at the time where my class was going through, it was 20 of us. And like, imagine having 20 kids, basically. Like the amount of time and effort and energy she gives all of us it's just a blessing. And like just some of the new opportunities I've been able to get and just like the confidence I've been able to have since being in the program, like it's been amazing. So I cannot say thank you enough.
Shout out to LaChina. Shout out to the whole program. And now let's shout out you. Where can everybody find your work? And I know everybody's gonna want to check it out now. So plug yourself. This is all you now.
Yes, y'all can find me on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at Symone with the Sports with a Y. Love Simone Biles, but she has everybody spelling my name wrong. Symone with a Y, and then Twitter, Symone_Stanley.
Oh my gosh. All right, everybody check out Symone at Symone with the Sports. And thank you guys for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Women's Basketball your first listen today. Now go check out the Locked On NBA podcast where the season never ends, providing national expertise with a local perspective. You can find the link to Locked On NBA in the description, so you don't need to search. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.